Good evening. As you listen to the sound of my voice, you might begin to notice your breath deepening, slowing. Allow me to be your gentle guide tonight, effortlessly leading you not to a sunlit palace or a famous battlefield, but down into the quiet, forgotten underbelly of a great city. As you settle in, you can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. A story about a world hidden just beneath the surface of Victorian London. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you wish, you can leave a comment below, letting me know the city you're listening from, and what time it is for you there. It's a quiet way of knowing we are all here, in this peaceful space together. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. The world you stand in is a world made of noise. It's a physical thing, this sound. It presses in on you from all sides, a chaotic symphony of iron-rimmed wheels grinding against damp cobblestones, the sharp clatter of 1,000 horseshoes, and the relentless, echoing shouts of street vendors. Oysters, fresh oysters, one cries, his voice raw. Buy a broom, a fine 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 broom, a face lost in the moving crowd. Solemn chime of a church bell tries to impose order on the chaos, but it's quickly swallowed by the roar of the city. You are standing on a corner somewhere in the heart of London, mid-19th century. The air is thick, a damp, grey blanket you can taste. It's a mix of coal smoke puffing from a forest of chimney pots, the sweet, cloying smell of roasting chestnuts from a nearby cart, and the much less pleasant, earthy scent of the River Thames, which even from here carries a certain potency. And beneath all that, the ever-present aroma of horses. Thousands upon thousands of them, the engines that power this sprawling metropolis. Historians have calculated that the city's horse population produced over 1,000 tons of manure every single day. A truly staggering thought. Most of it, you notice, seems to be coating the very street you're trying to cross. You pull your thin shawl a little tighter. The light is weak, a pale, watery sunlight that struggles to pierce the famous London fog, the pea souper they call it. It's not just water vapor. It's a thick brew of river mist and industrial soot that stains buildings a permanent shade of charcoal and makes your throat feel scratchy. On some days, it's so dense that people can't see their own hands in front of their faces. Today is a clearer day, which simply means you can see the endless river of humanity flowing past you. You watch the faces. The wealthy in their carriages, their expressions impassive behind clean glass. The merchants with their worried brows and quick steps. The children, impossibly small and grimy, darting through legs like sparrows, their eyes old with a knowledge no child should have. Everyone is moving, hurrying, a part of the great, churning machine of the empire's heart. And you are a part of it too, but you feel like a loose cog, rattling in place, unnoticed. The sheer variety of ways people scrape by you is dizzying. You've seen the pure finders who collect dog droppings to sell to tanneries, and the crossing sweepers who clear a path through the muck for a half-penny tip from a gentleman. Every inch of this city, every piece of its refuse, has a purpose, a value to someone desperate enough to find it. Historians still debate the true nature of Victorian charity and social consciousness. Was the immense poverty seen as a personal moral failing or a societal crisis? From where you stand, it just looks like a frantic, desperate scramble for survival. You don't have time for philosophy, you have time for finding a penny to buy a loaf of bread. But your path is not here, on the surface. The opportunities on these crowded streets are too few, the competition too fierce. Your gaze drifts downwards, towards the iron grate at the edge of the pavement. A sliver of darkness, an exhale of cool, damp air that smells of stone and decay. It's a different world down there, a silent world. A world most people pretend doesn't exist. They walk over it, every day, their lives powered by its hidden, flowing secrets, but they never look down. You do. You look down because the world above has offered you nothing but noise and filth and indifference. The world below offers something else. It's a terrifying prospect, a choice that isn't really a choice at all. But it offers a chance, however slim, to find something that has been lost. Something that could mean you eat tomorrow. The shouts of the vendors begin to fade as you focus on that dark opening. Roaring engine of London recedes into a dull hum. Your world, for now, is shrinking to the size of that iron grate. That iron grate isn't an invitation, it's an ultimatum. It whispers a question that has been echoing in the back of your mind for weeks. The world above has rules, and none of them seem to be written in your favor. As a woman with no family, no husband, and no fortune, your options are laid out like a handful of tarnished coins, each one offering a different kind of poverty. You've considered them all, turning them over and over in your thoughts during long, hungry nights. You could try for a position in domestic service, becoming a maid in one of the grand houses that line the city's squares. It sounds respectable, doesn't it? A roof over your head, 3 meals a day, a uniform. But you've heard the stories. You'd be rising before the sun and collapsing into bed long after it has set, your life dictated by the ringing of a bell. You would belong to the house, your time, your energy, even your name often replaced with a generic one like Mary or Jane for the family's convenience, no longer your own. A life of quiet servitude, always under someone else's thumb, always one accusation away from being thrown back onto the street with a ruined reputation. Or perhaps a factory. The great textile mills and match factories are always hiring. They promise a wage, a chance to be part of the industrial miracle that fuels the empire. But you've seen the women who come out of those places at the end of the day, their faces grey with exhaustion and their shoulders stooped. You've heard the endless, deafening roar of the machinery that can steal your hearing, and seen the clouds of cotton dust that steal your breath. You know about the phosphorus used in the matchstick heads, a substance that can rot the jawbone, a condition grimly nicknamed false side jaw. It's a slow, painful decay, and for what? A few shillings a week. There is always sewing. Slop work, they call it. Finishing shirts or trousers for a pittance in a cold, lonely room. You could work your fingers raw, your eyes blurring in the dim candlelight, and still not earn enough to keep the hunger at bay. It's a quiet, isolating existence, a different kind of prison where the walls are made not of brick, but of an endless pile of unfinished garments. And then there's the final dreaded option. The one that hangs over everyone in your position like a storm cloud, the workhouse. It is by design, the place of last resort. The Poor Law Amendment of 1834 made sure of that. It wasn't meant to be a comfort, but a deterrent. A place so grim, so regimented, so humiliating that any work, no matter how foul, would be preferable. You've heard they separate families at the door, husbands from wives, parents from wives, parents from children. Your own clothes taken away, your days would be filled with pointless, grueling labor, like breaking stones or picking oakum, the tedious task of unraveling old, tarred ropes. Your meals would be gruel. Your life would be a clean, cold, calculated misery, stripped of all dignity and freedom. This is a specific and chilling piece of social engineering. The workhouse existed to scare you into taking any other job. And it works. The thought of it makes your stomach clench with a fear far colder than any hunger pang. So you look back at the grate. Down there in the dark, there are no bells to answer. There is no factory owner to cheat you of your wages. There is no master to please, no foreman to fear. There is no one to separate you from what little you have. The risks are immense, you know this. It's a world of filth, disease, and sudden danger. But it is a world that offers a sliver of something the others don't, independence. Historians still puzzle over this very choice. Was it purely an act of desperation, the absolute last resort for those with no other possible path? Or was there a flicker of defiance in it? A conscious decision to choose a dangerous, solitary freedom over a safer, structured servitude? Looking at your own reflection in a grimy puddle, you feel it's a bit of both. You are being pushed, yes, by the crushing weight of the world above, but you are also choosing. You are choosing to be your own master, even if your domain is a kingdom of refuse. You turn your back on the noisy street, the cries of the vendors, the clatter of the carriages, The faces in the crowd, they all seem to belong to a different world now. A world that is no longer yours to navigate. Your path leads in another direction. The decision settles in your bones, heavy and solid. There is no joy in it, no sense of adventure. Just a grim, quiet resolve. You know what you must do. And first, you must acquire the tools of your new trade. Your new life requires a new skin. Not one of fine cloth or lace, but a uniform of practicality, of survival. And you know you won't find it in nation as a rag fair, a sprawling, chaotic market in one of the city's poorest districts where anything that has been lost, discarded or stolen eventually finds a new home. The air here hangs heavy with the scent of damp wool mildew and the faint, metallic tang of rust. It's the smell of things that have lost their purpose, waiting to be given a new one. You move through the narrow alleys between stalls piled high with a grim assortment of London's cast-offs. A mountain of mismatched boots, their leather cracked and worn. A tangle of scrap metal, old pots and bent tools. Stacks of clothing, stiff with grime, their original colors faded to a uniform shade of gray. This is where you assemble your armor. First, the most crucial element, and the most unusual for a woman of your time, trousers. You find a pair of men's woolen breeches, thick and coarse. A dress or skirt would be a death sentence down below, snagging on debris, soaking up the foul water, and tangling around your legs. These trousers are freedom. They are patched at the knee and smell faintly of mud and sweat, but they are strong. You trade a few of your last pennies for them. The exchange happening with a silent nod from the grim-faced merchant. Over this, you find a jacket, just as sturdy and shapeless, made of a thick, felted wool that promises to shed at least some of the constant damp. You run your hands over its surface. It's not soft, it's a protective shell. This is the core of the Toshers attire, as chronicled by the social investigators of the day. A strange, androgynous figure, clad in layers of heavy, dark fabric that obscures all form and offers maximum protection from the cold and the filth. Next, you need your new eyes. Tucked away on a stall selling old lanterns tools, you find it, a small tin ballsy lantern. It's a simple device with a door for a candle or a small oil reservoir, and a thick glass lens on one side to focus the meager light into a single, wavering beam. It feels heavy in your hand, solid and real. This small object will be your sun, your moon, and your only star in the kingdom you are about to enter. It is the most expensive piece of your new kit, and you barter for it fiercely, knowing your life will depend on its fragile flame. Then comes your scepter. Not of gold, but of wood and iron. You find a long, sturdy pole, perhaps an old broom handle or a piece of salvaged timber, about 8 feet long. At a nearby blacksmith's stall, for another precious penny, you have a small iron spike hammered onto the end. This simple staff is an extension of your body, your primary tool for interacting with the world below. It will probe the murky water for hidden drops, test the stability of the ground before you step, and turn over the debris in the sludge, searching for the telltale glint of metal or the hard outline of a lost coin. Your boots are perhaps the most important choice of all. You need something thick, old and sturdy. You spend a long time sifting through a pile of them, finally settling on a pair of men's work boots with hobnails hammered into the soles. The leather is stiff and the fit is poor, but they feel like they can withstand the horrors ahead. This is where a bit of strange, passed-down wisdom comes in handy. You also purchase a handful of straw. This isn't for bedding. You stuff the straw inside your boots around your feet. It provides a little insulation against the biting, subterranean cold and, more importantly, soaks up the inevitable leaks, helping to stave off the dreaded trench foot. A bizarre, but vital, piece of folk engineering. Finally, a large, coarse canvas sack. It's ugly and smells of old potatoes, but it's strong. You sling it over your shoulder. This sack is your hope chest and your burden. At the start of the day, it will be light with promise. By the end, you pray it will be heavy with fines, its weight a direct measure of your success. As you stand there, clad in your new strange uniform, holding your tools, you are transformed. You are no longer just a woman down on her luck. You are a Tosher. The social commentator Henry Mayhew would later describe this uniform in his writings, presenting it as a distinct and recognizable outfit. But historians still debate whether this was a true shared identity or simply the logical, practical conclusion reached independently by hundreds of desperate individuals. You don't think of it in such grand terms. You just know that these trousers, this jacket, this lantern, they are what you need to survive. It's a uniform born not of an army, but of a shared, grim necessity. And now, you are ready for your first descent. Clad in your makeshift armor, you walk towards the river, not to the grand embankments where couples stroll, but to the muddy, forgotten Faha, where the city's hidden veins bleed into the Thames. The tide is low, exposing a slick, grey-green carpet of mud littered with the detritus of London, oyster shells, fragments of pottery, driftwood, and things less identifiable. This is where the mouths of the old sewers, the storm drains and tributaries, open to the river, arched openings in the stone walls like silent waiting mouths. You choose one. It's not a grand entrance. It's a low, brick-lined arch, partially obscured by a curtain of slimy green algae. The air wafting from it is a physical presence, a cool, damp exhalation that smells of rotten old stone. This is a world away from the coal smoke and horse manure tang of the streets above. This is an ancient smell, a scent of things buried and forgotten. For a moment you hesitate. Your entire being, every instinct for self-preservation, screams at you to turn back. The city is behind you, loud and alive, bathed in the pale afternoon light. Before you is a perfect, featureless darkness. It is absolute. To step inside is to cross a threshold not just between light and dark, but between the known world and a place that exists only in nightmares and whispered warning. This is the moment of commitment. Every Tosher, whether a grizzled veteran or a trembling novice like yourself, faces this same moment. It's a silent, personal battle fought at the edge of the abyss. You think of the alternatives, the workhouse door, the factory whistle. The fear of those things, a cold, grinding fear, is just enough to overcome the primal, immediate terror of the darkness in front of you. You take a breath, not of the foul sewer air, but of the relatively fresh, riveting air of the world you are about to leave. It feels like the last clean breath you will take for a very long time. Your first action is to light your lantern. You open its small tin door, strike a precious lucifer match against a dry stone, and carefully light the wick of the small oil lamp inside. The flame sputters, then catches, casting a weak, flickering yellow glow. You close the door, and the bullseye lens focuses the light into a single, trembling circle. It's not much. It pushes the darkness back a few feet, creating a small, swimming bubble of visibility, but beyond its reach, the blackness seems even deeper, more absolute. The first step is the hardest. You lower your booted foot into the water at the mouth of the sewer. It's shockingly cold, a biting, invasive chill that seeps through the thick leather almost instantly. The water is not clear. It's a murky, opaque brown, and you can't see the bottom. The ground beneath your foot is soft, a sucking sludge of mud and God knows what else. It tries to pull your boot off, a first, unwelcoming handshake from the underworld. You use your long pole, your new third arm. You probe the ground ahead of you before taking your next step, feeling for solid footing, for sudden drops. This is a technique you've only heard about, but you understand its importance instantly. Walking blindly, you would be suicide. The pole is your guide, your eyes in the unseen depths. Slowly, carefully, you move forward. You duck your head to enter the low arch. One step, then another. The sounds of the city, the cries of the gulls over the river, the distant trumble of carts begin to change. They become distorted, then muffled. The brick walls of the tunnel close in around you. And then, as you take a few more steps forward and the arch of the entrance recedes behind you, the light of the outside world is snuffed out. Not faded, but gone. Your small lantern is now the only source of light in the entire universe. Its beam dances on the curved brick walls, slick with moisture and something that looks like black velvet. The water, a dark, sluggish river, flows around your knees. The silence is profound, broken only by the gentle lapping of the water against your legs and the soft, steady drip, 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 drip from somewhere in the ceiling above. This is it. You have left the world of the living. You are inside the belly of the beast. Some historical accounts romanticize this moment, framing it as a descent into a kind of forbidden kingdom. But the reality, you feel, is much less grand. It is a cold, damp, and terrifyingly lonely transition. There is a strange and little-known psychological phenomenon, often reported by cavers and miners, called sensory deprivation. Here, in the sewer, it is total. It's a state that can make a mind play tricks, and you have an entire day of it to look forward to. For now you just stand there, in your tiny bubble of light, surrounded by an infinite silent darkness. The darkness was the first shock, the cold was the second, but the third arrives on the air itself. It's a presence so thick, so complex, you feel you could almost reach out and touch it. The word smell is too simple to clean for what is entering your lungs. This is an atmosphere, an environment, a physical assault on your senses. Your first instinct is to gag. Your stomach clenches violently, and your eyes water, not from sadness, but from a purely chemical reaction. You clamp a hand over your mouth and nose, a useless gesture against an enemy that is already inside you, coating your tongue and the back of your throat. You try to take shallow breaths, but the air is heavy, wet, undoubtedly saturated. This is not just one smell. It's an entire library of decay, a foul and intricate perfume composed over centuries. As you stand there, forcing your body to acclimatize, your mind begins to unwillingly dissect the components. The bass note is overwhelmingly organic, the collective waste of a million lives from the city above. A raw, earthy pungency that is the sewer's primary identity. This is the smell of humanity in its most unfiltered form, but layered on top of that of a city at the peak of its manufacturing power. There's a biting, chemical tang that stings your nostrils that might be the runoff from a tannery, rich with ammonia. A coppery, metallic scent that catches in your throat could be from one of the many slaughterhouses, its gutters running reed into the drains. Then there are the breweries, the dye works, the soap boilers. Every factory, every workshop, every trade contributes its own unique effluent to this subterranean river, creating a chemical soup of staggering complexity. And beneath it all is the deep, damp smell of decomposition itself. The scent of things that have found their final resting place in the dock. Rotting vegetable matter, drowned animals, all dragged slowly turning back into thread and then into sludge. It is the smell of time itself, working on the city's refuse in the absence of light and fresh air. You become acutely aware of the air's other properties. It feels dead. It lacks the crispness, the vitality of the air above. This is air that has been breathed by bacteria, air that is heavy with gases. You've heard the whispers from other desperate folk, stories of the invisible dangers. Methane. They call it marsh gas, which can build up in pockets and be ignited by a spark from a lantern, creating a devastating explosion. And the even more sinister choke damp or foul air, what we now know as hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, which can suffocate a person silently, invisibly, making them simply grow dizzy, lie down, and never wake up. It's a truly bizarre and little-known fact that the earliest sewer explorers and workers sometimes took caged canaries with them, much like coal miners did. The small bird's faster metabolism meant it would succumb to poisonous gases long before a human would, serving as a tiny, feathered early warning system. You, however, cannot afford a canary. How did anyone work in these conditions? It's a question that modern occupational health experts and historians still find baffling. There's a significant debate on whether Victorians, living in a generally smellier world, simply had a higher tolerance for such odors, or if the constant exposure led to a permanent dulling of their olfactory senses. Perhaps the human body, in its incredible desperation to survive, simply learns to filter it out, to push the overwhelming sensory input into the background so that it can focus on the task at hand. Slowly, painfully, you force yourself to lower your hand from your face. You take a deliberate breath, then another. You are teaching your body a new language of survival. You are learning to accept this foulness as your new reality. The initial violent rejection subsides, replaced by a dull, persistent nausea. But you can stand it, you can function. And as the minutes tick by, you begin to notice that the smell is not uniform. It changes subtly as you shift your weight. As a faint current of air drifts by, you realize with a dawning sense of grim purpose that this foul air is not just an obstacle. It is also a source of information. It is a map, you just have to learn how to read it. Your lantern is a fickle god. It demands tribute precious oil, and in return it grants you a small, sacred circle of existence. Inside this bubble of light, you are real. Outside of it, you are nothing, swallowed by a darkness so profound it feels like a physical substance. This isn't the gentle, star-dusted darkness of a country night. It's an oppressive, absolute black, the kind that exists deep underground, untouched by light for centuries. You hold the lantern out in front of you, its focused beam cutting a tunnel through the void. The light glints off the slick, weeping brickwork of the sewer walls, revealing textures you couldn't see before. The bricks are coated in a fine, black slime, which in places hangs in thick, jelly-like festoons. Patches of pale, ghostly fungus cling to the mortar, life forms that have evolved to thrive without a single photon of sunlight. The effect is strangely beautiful and deeply unsettling, as if you've stumbled into a cathedral designed by decay. Your world shrinks to the size of this beam. Your eyes, starved of any peripheral information, become locked onto the small, illuminated patch of tunnel ahead. This extreme focus is both a tool and a trap. It allows you to scan the sludge at your feet for any hint of a find, but it also makes you blind to everything else. What lies just inches outside the beam? Is the ceiling lower than you think? Is there a hole in the floor just to your left? You can't know until you swing the light, and every time you do, you plunge the area you were just looking at back into oblivion. This is the sensory deprivation that defines your new life. Above ground, your eyes take in a million points of information at once: the sky, the horizon, the movement of a crowd. Down here, you have only one piece of data at a time. It's like trying to read a book by looking at one letter at a time through a pinhole. Your brain, desperate for context, has to work overtime to stitch these fleeting images together into a coherent map of your surroundings. You learn to move with a strange, deliberate slowness. You pan the lantern from side to side, then down at your feet, then up at the ceiling, in a constant, repetitive ritual of seeing. Each step is preceded by this careful scan. Swing the light, check the path, step. Swing the light, check the path, step. It's an exhausting, hypnotic rhythm. Here's a peculiar side effect of this light-starved world. Your other senses begin to sharpen, almost painfully so. Your hearing, your sense of touch through your boots and your pole, they all strain to compensate for what your eyes cannot see. You start to feel rather than see the shape of the tunnel. You can sense a change in air pressure that suggests a side passage or a larger chamber ahead. Historians and psychologists who study people in extreme environments, like polar explorers or deep-sea divers, often talk about the third man factor, a sensed presence or hallucinant sensory monotony. While you might not be seeing a full-blown ghost, you begin to understand how this place could play tricks on the mind. The flicker of your lantern can make shadows leap and dance in the most disconcerting way. A clump of rags caught on a brick can look for a terrifying instant like a hunched figure. Your own shadow, cast huge and distorted on the wall behind you, becomes a constant, silent companion, mimicking your every move. You learn to trust the lantern, but not completely. You learn that its light can lie. The water surface, for instance, can be a perfect mirror, reflecting the brick ceiling so clearly that it can create the illusion of a solid floor, hiding a deep, treacherous hole. You quickly learn to rely on your pole, constantly tapping the ground ahead, trusting its solid report over the visual trickery of the light. And then there's the color. Or rather, the lack of it. The world revealed by your lantern is almost entirely monochrome. Shades of black, brown, and grey. The wet bricks are a dark, chocolatey brown. The sludge is a perfect, light-absorbing black. The fungus is a ghostly white. When on a rare occasion, your beam catches a piece of colored glass or a scrap of bright cloth, the sudden flash of red or blue is so startling, so out of reach, it was like an intrusion from another dimension. There's a constant debate among those who study the Victorian poor about their inner lives. Were they so beaten down by circumstance that their existence was purely about survival, or did they find moments of reflection, even of a strange, dark beauty, in their surroundings? As you stand here, watching the light from your lantern catch the water droplets falling from the ceiling, turning them into a shower of fleeting diamonds, you can see how both could be true. This place is a hell. You can find a moment of strange, quiet wonder, a tiny spark of light, in an overwhelming universe of darkness. Your lantern is your lifeline, your prison, and your only connection to a world of form and substance. You guard its flame with your life, because it is your life. As your eyes adapt to the tyranny of the small, flickering light, your ears begin their own journey of acclimatization. At first, the sewer seems profoundly silent, the oppressive quiet a stark contrast to the chaotic noise of the streets you left behind. But as you stand still holding your breath, you realize that's not true. The silence is an illusion. This place has a voice. It must have to learn its language. The most constant sound is the water. It is the sewer's heartbeat. There's the gentle, rhythmic clapping of the current against your legs, a soft, hypnotic choosing that never stops. But listen closer. Drip, drip, from the vaulted ceiling above, condensation, then seepage create a slow, random percussion. Each drop echoes in the enclosed space, sounding much larger than it is, creating a soundscape of tiny, distinct events. You learn to read them. Base steady. Rapid dripping might indicate a broken water main above, a potential source of clean, if unwanted, water. A slow, thick clubbing sound could be something less pleasant seeping through the brickwork. Then there is the gurgle. It's a low, throaty sound that comes from the side tunnels and drains that feed into this main artery. It's the sound of the city above you breathing, exhaling its waste into the system. You learn that a sudden, loud gurgle from a side pipe is a warning. It means a large volume of something has just been released into the drain, perhaps a factory emptying a vat, or a household releasing a tub of laundry water. For a moment, the flow around your legs might quicken, the water level rising an inch or two before subsiding. Above these gentle, constant sounds, there are the sharper, more unpredictable noises. A distant, metallic clang echoes down the tunnel. What was that? A worker on the surface dropping a manhole cover back into place. It's a startling reminder that another world, a world of solid ground and open air, exists just a few feet above your head. You are so close, yet infinitely far away. And then there's the scraping, skittering sound. It's quiet, furtive, and it comes from the narrow ledges or banquettes that run along the sides of the sewer, just above the water line. You swing your lantern towards the noise, and for a terrifying second, you see a pair of tiny, red points of light reflected back at you. Then they vanish, rats. The sewer is their kingdom, and you are merely a trespass. You hear their movements constantly, a rustling, chittering counterpoint to the music of the water. They are a sound of life, but not a comforting one. This is where one of the more bizarre, undebated, urban legends of the Victorian sewers originates, the myth of the black swine of the sewers. Stories circulated in penny dreadful and popular magazines about enormous, feral pigs that had suddenly been lost or abandoned in the sewers as piglets and had grown to monstrous size in the darkness, their eyes devolved and their hides turned black. It's a fantastic, terrifying image, while there is absolutely no credible evidence of such creatures existing. The stories speak to the profound psychological fear the sewers represented to the world above. To you, the much more real and present sound of 1,000 tiny claws is frightening enough. As you tune your senses, you realize you can even hear the city through the ceiling. It's a low, constant rumble, like distant, unending thunder. It's the sound of 1,000,000 lives being lived, filtered through several feet of earth and brick. Occasionally, a specific, louder noise will penetrate your subterranean world, the heavy, rhythmic clatter of a dray horse and cart passing directly overhead. For a few seconds, the sound is right there, so close you feel you could reach up and touch the soil. Then it fades, reminding you of your isolation. Your ears become your primary warning system. You listen for changes in the rhythm of the water, for the telltale rumble that might signal a surge of water from upstream, or the faint scraping sound that could indicate a collapsing section of brickwork. Historians who study the letters and diaries of people in solitary professions, lighthouse keepers, shepherds, often note this heightened sense of hearing, this ability to extract vast amounts of information from subtle auditory cues. For you, it's not a curiosity, it's a critical survival skill. In this world of perpetual twilight, your ears must become your eyes. You stand still for another moment, just listening to the complex, quiet symphony of the sewer, letting its strange music become part of you. You begin to walk, not aimlessly, but with a developing sense of purpose. Your lantern beam sweeps back and forth across the surface of the dark, slow-moving river at your feet. At first, a uniform mudge, a disgusting uniform mess. But just as your ears learn to dissect the sounds, your eyes, guided by the focused beam, start to perceive the subtle textures and currents within the filth. You are learning to read the river. This is not a natural waterway. It is a man-made current, an artery carrying the lifeblood and the waste of the city. Its contents tell a story. You see the pale, ghostly shapes of vegetable peelings, potato skins, cabbage leaves drifting by, evidence of 1,000 kitchens preparing their evening meals. A slick, iridescent sheen on the water's surface, swirling with strange rainbow colors in your lantern light, signals the presence of oil or industrial chemical. A clear sign you are downstream from a workshop or factory. You learn to give these slicks a wide berth, knowing they can carry and seam poisons that can burn the skin. The river is a conveyor belt of London's refuse. You see clusters of what looks like dark, matted hair. In reality, it's fluff, the accumulated lint and fiber from countless textile workshops and laundries, which congeals into dense, semi-solid masses in the water. You see scraps of paper rendered into a pulpy mush, fragments of conversations and ledgers dissolved into illegibility. And most grimly, you occasionally see the bloated body of a drowned rat or cat spinning slowly in an eddy, a stark reminder of the perils of this environment. But you are not here as a passive observer. You are here to harvest. You begin to understand that the flow itself is your friend and your foe. In the center of the tunnel, the current is strongest. This is where the lighter, worthless debris is carried swiftly along. The real treasures, the objects with weight and substance, coins, pieces of metal, lost jewelry, are more likely to resist the main current. They will be tumbled along the bottom, eventually settling in places where the water slows down. You start to identify these places. A slight bend in the tunnel, a junction where a smaller sewer pipe joins the main one. The area around a supporting pillar, these are the places where eddies form, where the current churns and slows, dropping its heaviest burdens. You begin to walk along the edge of the tunnel, where the flow is more sluggish, your eyes scanning the murky depths at the meeting point of the wall and the floor. This is where another piece of esoteric Toshers knowledge comes into play. You are not just looking at the water, you are looking for scour. This is the term for places where the current, for whatever reason, runs faster and deeper, scouring the bottom of the sewer clean of silt and sludge, exposing the harder gravel bed beneath. Finding a patch of scour is like finding a gold miner's sluice. It's here, on these cleaner patches, that a heavy object like a silver shilling would be most visible, its metallic gleam standing out against the dark stone. Some historians argue that the knowledge of these specific, lucrative spots was a closely guarded secret among the most experienced Toshers, a kind of unwritten, unmappable treasure chart of the underworld. You use your pole to feel your way probing the riverbed. Much of the time it sinks into a soft, yielding sludge. But then you feel a hard, gritty resistance. You found a patch of gravel. Your heart beats a little faster. You lower your lantern, it's been penetrating the murky water for a few precious inches. You stir the bottom gently with the tip of your pole, watching the cloud of disturbed silt for any sign of something solid, something with a promising and natural shape. You are reading the sewer not just as a physical space, but as a dynamic system. You are a geologist of filth, a geographer of grime. You are learning its currents, its deposits, its patterns of erosion. You begin to form a mental map, not of the streets and squares above, but of the bends, junctions, and scours below. This hidden landscape, this river of refuse, is no longer a random, chaotic mess. It is a complex environment with its own rules, its own logic, and your survival depends entirely on your ability to understand it. The pole in your hands is no longer just a piece of wood. It has become a part of you, an extension of your senses, as vital as your own arm. In the absolute darkness, where your eyes can only see what the lantern allows, this simple staff is your primary means of interpreting the world. You hold it with a light but firm grip. Its weight familiar, its length a precise and known quantity. Your mastery of this tool is the single most important skill you will learn in your new profession. Its first and most crucial job is navigation. Before every single step, the pole reaches out into the darkness ahead of you. You don't just jab at the ground, you learn a specific, practiced motion. A gentle tap, a soft sweep. You are listening with your hands, feeling the vibrations that travel up the wooden shaft. A solid, reassuring thump tells you that you found firm brick or stone. A softer, duller thud signals a patch of deep, treacherous sludge that could swallow your leg up to the knee. But the most feared sensation is the one you are always on guard for, no resistance at all. The pole suddenly drops, finding only water. This is the dreaded manhole, not the covered ones leading to the street, but sudden, unmarked drops in the sewer floor, where one tunnel might empty into a lower one. These could be a fall of several feet, a bone-breaking, lantern-smashing plunge into a deeper, faster current. The pole is your only defense against this, a blind man's cane in a world of hidden cliffs. The pole is also your primary tool for investigation. As you walk, you use its iron-tipped tin to methodically turn over the debris in the water. You learn to interpret the feedback. The light scraping feel of turning over a piece of old wood. The heavy, grinding sensation of pushing aside a loose brick. The frustratingly soft and yielding feel of a clump of rags or a mass of that disgusting fluff. You are searching for a different kind of feedback, a sharp, high-pitched chink. It's a sound that travels up the pole and into the bones of your hand, a tiny, electric signal that cuts through the monotonous scraping and thudding. It's the sound of iron hitting something harder and more refined. It could be a stone, of course, but it could also be a nail, a piece of scrap metal, a lost tool, or if you are very, very lucky, a coin. When you hear that sound, you stop. You hold the lantern low, trying to pierce the gloom, and use the tip of the pole to gently probe and lift the object of interest. There's an art to this, a specific dexterity that takes time to develop. It is, in a way, a strange and filthy form of fishing. You use the pole to roll objects over, to pin them to the sewer floor so you can reach down and grab them, or to gently lift them towards the surface for a better look. This simple tool also becomes your measure of the world. By holding it upright, you can gauge the depth of the water. This is vital information, especially when you feel the current beginning to quicken. You also use it to check the height of the ceiling. In the older, more haphazardly built sections of the sewer, the roof can dip unexpectedly. More than one unwary soul has been knocked unconscious by walking into a low brick arch in the dark. A quick, upward tap with the pole before entering a new section becomes an instinctive, life-saving habit. The use of such specific, non-mechanical tools is a hallmark of many Victorian underclass professions. The mudlarkers on the Thames for how we use their bare hands and sharp eyes. The pure finders used to pail and scoop. Each job developed its own simple, yet highly specialized toolkit. Historians of technology and labor often focus on the grind machines of the Industrial Revolution, but there's a fascinating counter-history to be written about these simple, almost primitive tools, and the incredible skill with which they were wielded. The debate continues, was this a sign of primitive methods, or a highly refined adaptation to a unique environment where complex machinery would be useless? Standing here, feeling the sewer's secrets through this wooden staff, you know it is the latter. This pole is the perfect machine for this specific, hellish job. It is your probe, your guide, your weapon, and your divining rod all in one. The word they use on the surface is tosh. It's a slang term, part of the vast, colourful vocabulary of London's underworld, a language almost incomprehensible to the gentry. To be a Tosher is to be a hunter of tosh. But what, exactly, is it? As you probe the river of filth with your pole, you are engaged in a constant, high-stakes process of classification, sifting the valuable from the worthless. The vast majority of what flows past your legs is utterly useless. The organic waste, the vegetable peelings, the clouds of silt and street dirt, this is just the medium you work in, the foul water you must endure. The clumps of rugs and paper are a frustrating distraction, mimicking the weight and feel of something more substantial, only to dissolve into a pulpy mess when you try to lift them. This is the background noise of your trade. Your eyes and the tip of your pole are searching for the specific and the unnatural. The primary category of Tosh is metal. In the heart of an industrial empire, metal is currency. Even the smallest, most rusted piece has value. You learn to spot the dull, reddish brown of corroded iron, perhaps an old nail, a dropped bolt, or a broken hinge. It's not worth much, but a sack, if you elevate, will buy you a loaf of bread. This is your bread and butter, the most common and reliable find. You use the tip of your pole to flick a piece of scrap iron out of the water and onto the narrow brick ledge at the side of the tunnel to be collected on your way back. A step above iron is copper. Copper has a warmer gleam, a faint greenish patina of verderigs that your lantern light catches in a specific way. The city above is shedding copper constantly. The most common source is ships, sheathing nails used in the countless boatals along the Thames. But the grand prize, the thing to sheer dream of, is a lost copper coin. A penny, or even better, a halfpenny, or even better, a halfpenny. Finding one is a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. It's not just potential value. Like a piece of scrap, it is value. You quickly stash it in a small leather pouch you keep tied securely to your belt, separate from the bulkier, less precious finds in your sack. Then there are other metals. Lead, from scraps of roofing or plumbing, has a dull, heavy feel. Pewter, from a discarded spoon or a fragment of an old tankard, is lighter, with a soft grey sheen. And bone. Bone is a surprisingly common find and has a small but steady value. Animal bones from the slaughterhouses and kitchens were sold to be ground down for fertilizer or used in crafts like button making. It's a grim harvest, picking the remains of a Sunday roast from the muck, but a penny is a penny. This is the strange economy of the underclass, a concept that social investigators like Henry Mayhew found so fascinating. It was a vast, unofficial recycling system, long before the term was ever invented. Nothing was truly thrown away, it just entered a new phase of its life, scavenged and repurposed by the city's poorest inhabitants. Historians still debate the actual scale of this informal economy. Was it a marginal, desperate activity, or a significant, if hidden, part of London's material cycle? From your perspective, it feels like the only economy that matters. And then there is the hope, the whispered legend that keeps every Tosher going through the cold and the filth. The possibility of finding the good stuff. A dropped silver shilling, shining like a fallen moon in the sludge. A lady's gold ring, slipped from her finger and washed down a drain. A gentleman's silver cigar case. These are the lottery winnings of the sewer. The stories are told in hushed tones of a Tosher who found a whole purse of sovereigns, enough to escape this life forever. Are the stories true? Who knows? But they are a necessary fuel, a glimmer of light in the darkness that is not from your lantern. So you work on, your mind a constantly worrying calculator of value. Is that a rock or a piece of lead? Is that a stick or a bone? Is that glint just a trick of the light on a piece of glass? Or is it the edge of a coin? You are a treasure hunter in a river of poison, an alchemist trying to turn filth into food. The definition of Tosh is simple, really. It is anything that the world above has lost, and that you are desperate enough to find. The work settles into a rhythm. It's a slow, hypnotic dance of survival, dictated by the swing of your lantern and the probe of your pole. Your mind is focused, narrowed down to the single, all-important task of finding. The outside world, with its complex rules and social ladders, has ceased to exist. Here, the rules are simpler. Find metal, find marl, find enough to eat tomorrow. You've had some minor success. A few heavy iron nails, the bent copper strip, a piece of lead pipe. They make a satisfying if meager clunk as you drop them into your canvas sack. It's enough to keep the hope simmering. Following a promising-looking flow, you turn into a smaller, narrower side tunnel. The brickwork here is older, the arch of the ceiling lower. The water is shallower, The current almost non-existent. It feels like a place that has been forgotten, even by the rest of the sewer. A place where things might settle and remain undisturbed for years. It's here that you first notice the change. It's subtle. The air, which has been a constant, foul companion, feels different. It's still, heavy. The faint, almost imperceptible draft that accompanies the flow of water in the main channel is gone. The complex symphony of smells has been replaced by a single, dominant note of faint, sickly sweet odor, something like rotting cabbage. And the silence is deeper here. The familiar gurgles and drips are absent. You take a few more steps into the tunnel, your pole tapping ahead. And then you see it, your lantern. The flame, which has been a steady, companionable yellow, is behaving strangely. It seems to stretch upwards, becoming taller and thinner than before, and at its base, a faint, ghostly blue halo appears, flickering around the wick. A cold fist clenches in your stomach. This is a sign, a warning passed down in hushed whispers among those who work in the dark places of the earth, from coal miners to Toshers. This is fire damp, what the scientists in their laboratories call methane, an invisible, odorless gas that seeps from the decaying sludge, heavier than air, that can gather in these still pockets. It is the stuff of explosions, a demon waiting for a single spark. At the same time, your own body sends you a warning. A dull headache begins to throb behind your eyes. You feel a wave of dizziness, a lightheadedness that makes the tunnel seem to tilt for a moment. Your breathing feels shallow, as if the air itself lacks substance, as if you can't quite get enough of it into your lungs. This is the silent enemy. Not a wall that can collapse or a tide that can rush you off your feet, but a poison that you breathe, an invisible predator that can kill you without ever laying a hand on you. You now face a terrifying choice. The back of this tunnel looks promising, undisturbed. It could hold a treasure, but to reach it, you have to walk through this pocket of tainted air. And then you notice the second sign, an absence that is more terrifying than any presence. The rats, the narrow ledges along the walls are clean. There are no droppings, no furtive, skittering sounds from the shadows. In the main tunnels, the rats are a constant, unpleasant companion. Here they are gone. This is a fascinating and grim piece of sewer lore. The rats, with their sensitive noses and primal survival instincts, know where the bad air is. They will not enter it. Rat-free section of the sewer is a death trap. How much did a Tosher like you truly understand about the chemistry of these gases? This is a point of considerable debate among historians. It's unlikely you would know the names methane or hydrogen sulfide, but you would have a practical, life-saving taxonomy of bad air. You'd know that the fire damp changes your flame and makes you dizzy, and that it can explode. You'd know that choked hemp, carbon dioxide and nitrogen makes you sleepy and can extinguish your lantern flame outright, plunging you into a darkness from which you might never awaken. It's a knowledge born not of textbooks, but a brutal, unforgiving experience, passed down from one survivor to another. There is no hesitation. No treasure is worth this risk. You do not turn your back, which would involve a sudden movement that could stir up the gas. Instead, you begin to back away, slowly, deliberately. Each step is placed with infinite care. You keep your lantern low and steady, praying that no stray spark flies from the wick. You move backwards, out of the silent, waiting side tunnel, back towards the main channel. After what feels like an eternity, you feel the faint draft on your cheek. You see the flame of your lantern shrink back to its normal, healthy yellow shape. You take a breath, and the air, though still foul, feels rich and life-giving in your lungs. The headache begins to recede. You have survived. You have met the silent killer and learned its face. And you have learned that sometimes, the most valuable thing you can find in the sewer is the path back out. You make your way back to the main, larger tunnel, your heart still beating a little faster from the encounter with the bad air. The gentle flow of the water around your legs and the faint, familiar draft feel like a comforting embrace. You've learned a vital lesson. The most tempting, quiet-looking places can be the deadliest. Survival here isn't just about finding things. It's about knowing what to avoid. You continue your journey, but now with a new awareness. You are not just looking down at the water anymore. Your lantern beam now makes a more regular journey upwards, scanning the vaulted brick ceiling above you. The sewer is an architectural marvel in its own way, a testament to the skill of the Victorian bricklayers, the navvies who built these tunnels. But it is not immortal. It is a structure under constant, immense pressure from the weight of the city above, and under constant, insidious attack from the water and chemicals within. The walls weep. In many places water seeps constantly through the mortar, tracing dark, glistening paths down the brickwork. This is normal, but you learn to spot the signs of trouble. You look for a bulge, a slight outward curve in a section of the wall that should be straight. This is a telltale sign of immense pressure from the soil behind it, a brick wall groaning under a load it was not meant to bear. You give these areas a wide berth, walking on the far side of the tunnel, your body tense. You also listen. As you pass beneath a section of weeping wall, you hold your breath and listen for a faint, gritty, trickling sound. It's the sound of sand and mortar being washed out from between the bricks. This is a sign of imminent failure. A wall that is singing, as some of the old sewer workers called it, is a wall that is getting ready to collapse. Your lantern beam reveals a section of brickwork that looks different. The bricks are cracked with fine, spittery lines running through them. The mortar between them is crumbling, turning to a pale dust. You reach out a gloved hand and touch the wall. It feels soft, friable. The brick crumbles slightly under the pressure. This is the result of a phenomenon now known as sulfate attack, a chemical reaction between the industrial pollutants in the water and the lime mortar that holds the bricks together. The Victorians didn't understand the chemistry, but they knew the result, a slow, cancerous decay that could turn a solid brick wall into a fragile shell. This is where the fear of a cave-in becomes a real and present threat. It's a primal fear, the terror of being buried alive in the dark. You imagine the sudden, deafening roar, the cracking of brick, and then the crushing weight, the instant oblivion. Or worse, to be trapped, your legs pinned by a pile of rubble, your lantern smashed, left to wait for the rising tide in absolute darkness and pain. You probe the ground ahead of you with your pole, and you feel it give way with a soft, sucking sound. You shine the light down and see a small depression in the sewer floor, a boil where the water seems to be welling up from below. This is another terrifying sign. It means water pressure from the ground outside is forcing its way in, undermining the very foundations of the tunnel. The floor beneath your feet is not as solid as it seems. The great sewer engineer Joseph Bozoletich, whose massive new sewer system you are still years away from seeing, would use revolutionary materials like Portland cement to combat this decay. But you are in the older, pre-Bozoletich labyrinth. These tunnels were built with whatever materials were cheapest and most available. The quality varies wildly from one section to the next. Some are masterpieces of engineering, others are disasters waiting to happen. The question of just how aware the city authorities were of the dangerous state of their own sewers is a matter of ongoing historical debate. Public reports spoke of a grand, solid system, but the private maintenance logs, the ones that survive, tell a story of constant, panicked repairs and near disasters. You spot another warning sign on the wall, a long, thin, reddish-brown stain seeping from a crack. Rust. It means that an iron water or gas pipe, buried in the ground just outside the sewer wall, has corroded and is leaking. The constant damp is a relentless enemy to all forms of ironwork. This adds another layer of danger. A leaking gas main could be filling the very ground around the sewer with flammable gas, just waiting for a spark. You move with a new kind of caution now, your senses alive not just to the potential treasures in the water, but to the groans and sighs of the massive, decaying structure around you. You are like a flea on the back of a dying beast, acutely aware that its every twitch, its every shudder, could mean your end. The walls are not just walls, they are a living ledger of pressure, decay, and time, and you must learn to read their subtle, silent warnings if you wish to see the sun again. You've been in the darkness for what feels like an eternity. Time loses its meaning down here, measured only by the slow lowering of the oil in your lantern and the growing ache in your back. The work is grueling, a constant stooping and probing, your eyes straining in the wavering light. You found a few more scraps of metal, adding a satisfying weight to your sack, But the big find, the silver coin that would make all this worthwhile, remains elusive. You're in a wider section of the main sewer, the sluggish current moving at a steady, predictable pace around your knees. The air feels normal, or what passes for normal in this place. Your senses are lulled by the monotony, the rhythmic drip of water, the soft scrape of your pole against the brick floor. It's a dangerous state to be in. The first warning is a sound. It's not loud. It's a deep, distant rumble, so low it's almost a feeling, a vibration that travels through the soles of your boots and up into your bones. It's a sound that doesn't belong to the natural symphony of the sewer. You freeze, your head cocked, straining to hear. The rumble grows, becoming a distinct, ominous roar. It's the sound of a large body of water moving very, very fast. Your blood runs cold. You know what this is. Every Tosher, every sewer worker, lives in mortal dread of this sound. This is the flush. The sewer system you're in isn't just a passive network of pipes. It's a managed system of a sort. At key points, pen stocks, or large wooden gates, are used to hold back the flow of water and sewage. Periodically, often without warning, the FL ushers, the men who maintain the sewers, will open these gates. The purpose is to release a sudden, massive wave of water to scour the tunnels clean of accumulated silt and blockages. For the FL ushers, it's a routine maintenance task. For anyone caught in its path, it is a liquid avalanche, a thundering, unstoppable wall of filth. You have seconds to react. Panic is a useless luxury. Your mind races, your eyes darting around in the narrow beam of your lantern. Where do you go? The tunnel is a straight brick-lined tube. There is nowhere to hide. To be caught in the middle of the flow would mean being swept off your feet, your head smashed against the brickwork, your body tumbled along in the churning, debris-filled torrent until you drown. Your lantern beam catches it, a small, iron ladder bolted to the side of the sewer wall. It leads up to a narrow ledge, a small alcove that is perhaps 4 or 5 feet above the current water level. It might be a maintenance access point. It is your only hope. The roar is much louder now, a deafening, freight train sound that fills the entire tunnel. You can hear the hiss and churn of the approaching wave. You abandon your pole, there's no time for it. You slosh through the water towards the ladder, your sack of funds banging against your side, suddenly feeling impossibly heavy. Your cold, numb fingers close around the first iron rung. It's slick with slime, and for a terrifying moment, your hand slips. You grip it again, your knuckles white, and haul yourself up. The ladder is vertical, and your heavy, waterlogged clothes and the weight of your sack conspire to pull you back down. The roar is deafening now. You can feel the wind of the displaced air rushing past you, rung by rung. Your muscles scream in protest. You pull yourself onto the small ledge just as the wave hits. It is a vision of absolute chaos. A roaring brown wall of water fills the tunnel from floor to ceiling. It slams into the wall beneath you with the force of a battering ram, the sound of physical blow. The water level rises instantly, an express lift of filth, licking at the heels of your boots, even on the high ledge. The stench is overwhelming, a concentrated blast of everything foul the sewer has to offer. In the churning chaos of the wave, you see large objects being swept along, a dead dog, a broken wooden crate, a piece of timber, any one of which could have crushed you. It passes as quickly as it came. The main crest of the wave roars past, and the water level begins to drop, not to its original level, but significantly higher and faster moving than before. The tunnel is transformed, the once sluggish stream now a rushing, angry river. You cling to the ladder, your body trembling, your breath coming in ragged gasps. You are soaked from the spray, and a new, profound chill sets in. This event is a stark illustration of the Industrial Revolution's impact on the urban environment. The sheer volume of water being used by the city's homes and factories necessitated such drastic and dangerous flushing methods. The question of whether the FL ushers ever gave warnings before opening the gates is a point of contention in historical records. Some accounts claim a warning shout would be passed down the tunnels. But in a labyrinthine system like this, it's easy to see how a warning could be missed or simply not given. It was a brutal, pragmatic solution to a massive problem, And the lives of the unauthorized people in the tunnels were not a primary concern. You were simply in the way of progress. The roaring has subsided now, replaced by the gurgle of a river running far too high and fast. It will be a long time before it's safe to go back down. You remain on your narrow perch for what feels like an hour, maybe longer. The terror slowly subsides, leaving behind a deep, bone-aching chill and the tremor of adrenaline. The water level gradually lowers, the angry torrent calming to a swift but manageable current. It is finally safe to descend. You retrieve your pole, miraculously wedged against the ladder by the receding water, and resume your journey. But the encounter has changed you. The sewer no longer feels like a static, predictable environment. It feels alive, capricious, and actively hostile. This heightened sense of vulnerability brings a new fear to the forefront of your mind, a fear that has been lurking in the background all along, the fear of getting lost. When you first entered, you had a simple mental map. The main tunnel runs parallel to the river. To get out, you just need to turn around and walk back the way you came. But it's not that simple. In the hours you've been down here, you have followed promising side tunnels, explored offshoots, and navigated junctions. You think you have a good sense of direction, but in this world of uniform, curving brick walls and no external landmarks, how can you be sure? You come to a junction. Two tunnels diverge in front of you, both identical, both vanishing into perfect darkness beyond the beam of your lantern. A cold knot of anxiety tightens in your chest. Which way to remember a distinguishing feature, a particular pattern of slime on the wall, a unique crack in the brickwork, but everything looks the same. The darkness and the focused beam of your lantern have a way of erasing contact, of making every new section look exactly like the last. This is the labyrinthine nature of London's old sewer system. It wasn't one single planned network. It was a chaotic accumulation of centuries of construction. Roman drains were absorbed into Saxon ditches, which were then bricked over by medieval builders and connected to Georgian sewers. The result was a maddening, illogical maze. There were tunnels that led to dead ends, circular passages that brought you back to where you started, and junctions with 5 or 6 identical-looking openings. You try a trick you've heard about. You make a small scratch on the brick wall with the iron tip of your pole, a small arrow pointing back the way you think you came. It's a desperate, small act of asserting order on the chaos. But what if you've already passed this junction and didn't mark it? The thought is dizzying. The fear of being lost down here is not just about the inconvenience. It's a death sentence. Your lantern oil is finite. Your strength is finite. To wander aimlessly is to slowly, inevitably, run out in flames, sputtering and dying, plunging you into an absolute, terrifying blackness from which there is no escape. You would be left to stumble blindly, calling out until your voice was raw, with no one to hear you but the rat. There is a strange, little-known piece of urban folklore about the sewers, the idea of sewer witches or maze ghosts, spirits of those who became lost in the tunnels and whose malevolent ghosts would try to lead others astray. It's a fanciful story, but it speaks to a very real and primal fear. The terror of the labyrinth is an ancient human archetype, and you are living it. Historians and urban archaeologists who have studied the old sewer maps are often struck by their complexity and, in some cases, their sheer inaccuracy. The men who built these tunnels often worked from flawed plans or no plans at all, creating a subterranean geography that even the city's own surveyors didn't fully understand. There's an ongoing academic effort to digitally map these old systems, and even with modern technology, it's a monumental task. With only a flickering lantern and a fading memory, the challenge is infinitely greater. You make a choice. You pick the tunnel that feels right, the one that seems to have a slightly stronger current, hoping it's the main channel leading back towards the river. You begin to walk, your pace a little quicker now, a new urgency in your movements. Every junction you pass, you peer into the darkness, assailed by a fresh wave of doubt. Should you have turned there? Was that the way you came? You start to notice the graffiti. Not modern spray paint, but crude, older markings scratched into the brick with a nail or a piece of stone. A set of initials. They date from 20 years ago. A simple cross. These are the marks of the sewer FL ushers, the maintenance men, the only other humans who regularly navigate these depths. They are a comforting sight, proof that you are not the first person to pass this way. They are like the trail markers of a secret, subterranean tribe. You begin to follow them, trusting the forgotten paths of these other men of the dark, praying they lead you towards the light. Following the faint trail of scratched initials, you feel a small measure of confident return. You are on a path, however faint, a route that other humans have traveled. The sense of absolute, disorienting isolation lessens, replaced by the quiet hum of methodical work. You are so focused, eyes on the walls and the telltale currents in the walls, and the telltale currents in the walls miss the first sign of their presence. It's a sound, a unified, high-pitched chittering that seems to come from the walls themselves. Then, a movement. On the narrow brick ledge just above the waterline, your lantern beam catches a flicker of motion. Not one, but dozens of sleek, dark shapes flowing over the bricks like a liquid shadow. You stop, your heart thudding. They are not the timid, scurrying creatures you might see in a surface alleyway, bolting at the first sign of a human. These are different. They are the undisputed kings of this domain, and they are not afraid of you. They are bold, curious, and unsettlingly numerous. You swing your lantern beam along the ledge, and the chittering intensifies. Hundreds of tiny, red-black eyes glint back at you from the darkness, a constellation of malevolent stars. This is their city. They have their own highways along the ledges, their own territories marked by scent, their own complex social structures hidden in the walls. You are the intruder, a slow, clumsy giant wading through their kingdom. Most of the time they are a background presence, a constant but distant threat. They are scavengers, more interested in the organic filth of the sewer than in you. But you've heard the stories. Stories of Toshers who were injured, who fell and broke a leg, unable to move. The stories always end the same way, with the rats, drawn by the scent of blood and the sudden stillness, becoming something more than just a nuisance. A particularly large rat, its first lick and dark, detaches itself from the main group on the ledge. It doesn't run away from your light. It stops, raises its head, and seems to study you, its whiskers twitching as it tests the air. For a long moment, you are locked in a silent standoff with this creature, the ruler of the underworld. It is a chilling, intelligent gaze. Then, with a flick of its tail, it turns and vanishes back into the shadows. The sheer scale of the rat population in Victorian London is something modern minds can barely comprehend. The city's new sewer systems, along with its overflowing garbage and horse manure, created a perfect breeding ground. Contemporary estimates, while likely exaggerated, often spoke of a rat for every person living in London, millions upon millions of them. They were seen as a symbol of the city's decay, a creeping, verminous plague from below. And they were a source of a rather bizarre and grim sport. Rat baiting was a popular pastime in the city's taverns, where a terrier would be placed in a pit with 100 rats, and bets would be taken on how long it would take the dog to kill them all. This created a demand for live rats, and a strange profession was born, the rat catcher. These men, often accompanied by their own trained dogs, would venture into the sewers not for scrap metal, but for live prey, capturing the rats in cages to sell to the sporting establishments. This leads to an odd and debated point of social history. Did the two Toshers and the rat catcheress ever interact? Did they see each other as colleagues in the underworld, or as rivals? The historical record is almost entirely silent on this. It's likely their paths rarely crossed. You certainly hope they don't. The idea of encountering another human down here is almost as unsettling as the rats themselves. You give the colony a wide berth, walking on the opposite side of the tunnel, your pole held defensively. You are acutely aware of the vulnerability of your sack of finds, which you now hold up out of the water. The faintest scent of the bone fragment you found earlier might be enough to draw their unwanted attention. As you move past them, the chittering subsides. They let you pass. You have respected their territory, and they have, for now, tolerated your presence. But the encounter leaves you with a deep visceral unease. You are not alone in the darkness. You are sharing this space with a vast, intelligent, and hungry population of creatures who are perfectly adapted to this environment. You are the alien, the outsider. And you are reminded, once again, that in the sewer, you are very, very far down on the food chain. The encounter with the rat colony leaves a lingering shadow of unease. It's a reminder that the dangers here are not just architectural or chemical, they are biological. You are wading through a liquid substance that is not just unpleasant, but teeming with invisible life, a microscopic world of threats far more insidious than a collapsing wall or a sudden flood. You feel a sharp sting on the back of your hand. You look down and see a small, clean cut, a long scratch from a piece of rusted iron you were trying to pry from the sludge. In the world above, it would be a minor annoyance, something to be washed and forgotten. Down here, it is a gaping doorway. You stop and reluctantly dip the wound into the very water you know to be the source of the danger. The cold stings, but you hope foolishly perhaps, that the moving current might wash away the worst of the filth. You wrap a strip of rag you carry in your pocket around the cut, a pathetic shield against an army of invisible enemies. Every drop of water that soaks into your woolen trousers, every splash that lands on your face, every breath of aerosolized mist you inhale is a calculated risk. This is the home of diseases that terrorize the city above: cholera, typhoid, dysentery. Up there, they are mysterious, terrifying plagues that strike without warning. Down here, you are swimming in their very source. Cholera, the Blue Death, is the great fear of your era. It had swept through London in devastating epidemics in 1832 and again in 1848. The city's greatest scientific minds were baffled by it. The prevailing theory, the one that most doctors and officials subscribed to, was the miasma theory. They believed that diseases were spread by bad air, by the foul stenches rising from the river and the slums. It's why they thought that flushing the sewers with massive waves of water was a good idea. It was an attempt to wash the source of the miasma out to sea. It's a tragically ironic piece of history. In their very attempt to fight the disease, they were making it worse, spreading the contaminated water more effectively throughout the river, which was the primary source of drinking water of the city. The truth discovered by the physician John Snow during the 1854 epidemic was that cholera was a waterborne disease, spread by a bacterium in contaminated water. His work would be a turning point in the history of public health. But that is all in the future. For you, right now, the miasma theory feels terrifyingly plausible. The air is thick with stench, and you are breathing it second by second. But, even without understanding the specific germ theory of disease, you have a deep, practical understanding of the danger. You know that a fever contracted down here is a death sentence. You know that you must never, ever touch your mouth or eyes with your soiled hands. You know that the smallest cut or abrasion must be treated with immediate, paranoid care. This constant, low-level fear of sickness is a part of the job. It's a question that historians of medicine and poverty continue to explore. What was the actual life expectancy of a Tosher? The records are, of course, almost non-existent. These were people who lived and died at the absolute margins of society, their passing unrecorded. But it's safe to assume that their careers were brutally short. A persistent cough, a debilitating fever, a festering wound, any of these could spell the end. There was no sick pay, no doctor you could afford. To stop working was to starve. You become hyper-aware of your own body. Every cough, every twinge in your gut, every ache in your joints triggers a small flicker of fear. Are you getting sick? Is this the start of the fever? The psychological toll of this constant vigilance is immense, perhaps even more draining than the physical labor. You look at the black, filth-caked grime under your fingernails. It's a part of you now. You can never get truly clean. Even when you return to the surface, the faint, foul scent of the sewer will cling to your clothes and your skin, a permanent reminder of where you have been. It is the price of survival, a trade-off of health for a few precious pennies. You retie the rag around your cut hand, a small, futile gesture against a world of sickness, and force yourself to move on. But the fear in your gut is a far heavier burden to carry. The hours have merged into one long, continuous present of darkness, damp, and drudgery. You've become a creature of this place, your movements practiced, your senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the environment. The initial terror has been replaced by a weary, functional vigilance. You are so deep in your own world, so focused on the small circle of light at your feet, that you don't notice you are no longer alone. It's not a sound that alerts you. It's a change in the light. Ahead of you, down the long, straight tunnel, you see a second flicker. It's a tiny pinprick of yellow, impossibly small in the vast darkness, but it's there. It wavers, disappears for a moment, then reappears. It is another lantern. Your first instinct is a jolt of pure, primal fear. Your heart leaps into your throat. In this solitary, forgotten world, the appearance of another human is not a comfort, it's a threat. Every instinct screams at you to douse your own light, to press yourself against the cold brick wall and melt into the shadows. Who is it? A sewer flusher on his rounds? A rat catcher? Or is it another Toshers? The light grows slowly larger, steadier. It is coming towards you. You stand your ground, your hand tightening on your long pole. The pole is not just a tool for finding. It is your only weapon. The canvas sack on your back, with its meager collection of scrap metal, suddenly feels like a hoard of treasure you must defend. The space between you closes. You can now make out a figure, a silhouette as dark and shapeless as your own, wading slowly through the water. It is another Toshers. As the figure gets closer, your lantern light catches the details. It's a woman, her face obscured by shadows and grime, her frame stooped with weariness. She is dressed in the same practical, genderless uniform of trousers and a heavy jacket. She carries a pole and a sack. Just like you, she is your mirror image, a ghost of yourself walking out of the darkness. You both stop, about 20 feet apart, caught in the overlapping pools of your two small lanterns. The tunnel, which had seemed so vast and lonely, now feels impossibly small and crowded. Neither of you speaks. There are no greetings in this world, no pleasantries. The silence is thick with a mixture of suspicion, rivalry, and a deep, unspoken understanding. This other woman is your competition. She is searching for the same lost coins, the same scraps of copper that you are. Every piece she finds is a piece that you do not. The sewer is a place of finite, scarce resources, and you are both rivals in a zero-sum game. You watch as her eyes flicker down to the water at your feet, assessing the area you are working in, judging whether you have already picked it clean. But she is also the only other person in the world who understands. The only other person who knows the specific ache in your lower back, the feeling of the icy water seeping into your boots, the constant, gnawing fear of the flush or the cave-in. You see the exhaustion etched on her face, the same exhaustion you feel in your own bones. In her, you see your own struggle, your own desperation, reflected back at you. This is a social dynamic that historians of poverty find endlessly fascinating. How did these marginalized, solitary workers interact with each other? Was it a world of cutthroat competition, of every man for himself? Or was there a kind of unspoken code, a community of shared hardship? The truth, most likely, is that it was a complex and shifting mixture of both. There are anecdotal accounts of Toshers fighting over a particularly rich find, but there are also stories of them sharing information about dangerous sections of the sewer or helping a fellow worker who was injured. The other woman gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It is not a greeting. It is an acknowledgement. A sign of mutual respect for having survived this long. Then, without a word, she shifts her path, moving to the far side of the tunnel, leaving a wide space between you. She is honoring your claim to this small patch of the sewer. You, in turn, do not challenge her as she passes. You simply watch her light recede down the tunnel behind you, until it is once again a tiny, flickering pinprick, and then nothing at all. The encounter leaves you feeling strangely shaken. For a few brief moments, the profound solitude of your existence was broken. And in that moment, you were confronted with the reality of your own life, mirrored in the eyes of a stranger. You are not a unique, solitary sufferer. You are one of an army of ghosts, haunting the bowels of the city, all engaged in the same desperate, silent struggle. The encounter has left you feeling both more alone than ever before. The encounter with the other Toshers leaves a strange echo in the quiet. The profound solitude feels different now, less a simple fact of your environment and more a conscious state of being. You push the thought of her away and return to the work. The hypnotic rhythm of probes scan step. You need to find something. The weight of your sack is a constant, nagging reminder of your meager progress. The day is slipping away, and you have little to show for it. You decide to try a new location. You remember passing the outflow of a smaller, brick-lined drain a little while back. It empties into this main tunnel, and the junction creates a swirling eddy, a perfect natural trap for heavy objects. You wade back towards it, your hopes dwindling with every fruitless step. You reach the junction. Here the water is deeper, swirling in a slow, dark whirlpool around your thighs. It's a promising spot. You brace yourself against the wall and begin to work the area with your pole, a methodical, sweeping search of the bottom. The tip of the pole scrapes against the usual mix of soft sludge and loose stones. You feel a familiar sense of disappointment beginning to set in. Perhaps this spot has been picked clean by others, by the woman you just saw. And then you feel it. It's not the dull thud of a rock or the grating scrape of iron. It's a small, sharp, distinct click that travels up the pole into the palm of your hand. It's a clean, solid sound, the sound of your iron tip striking something small, dense, and unyielding. Your breath catches in your throat. You've felt this sensation 100 times today, and it has always been a worthless stone or a piece of broken pottery. But this time it feels different. There's a certain clarity to the contact. You hold your lantern as low as you dare. It's been cutting a bright circle in the murky, swirling water. You use the tip of your pole to gently, carefully, scrape away the top layer of silt from the spot where you felt the contact. A small cloud of black filth billows up, momentarily obscuring your view. You wait, your body absolutely still, as the current slowly clears the water. And then you see it. For a heart-stopping second, it's just a glimmer, a tiny flash of reflected light, almost like a fish's scale. It's so easy to miss, so quick to vanish. But you saw it. You use the pole again, this time with the delicacy of a surgeon, nudging the object. It rolls over. And now it is unmistakable. It's a perfect circle of pale, luminous metal, shining with an almost supernatural brightness against the black ooze of the sewer floor. It's not copper, it's not pewter. A wave of adrenaline of pure, unadulterated triumph surges through you, washing away the cold and the exhaustion. You forget the filth, the danger, the rats. In this moment, there is only you and that beautiful, impossible circle of light. Getting it is a delicate operation. You can't just plunge your hand in. The current would sweep it away. You use the pole to pin it to the floor, then slowly, carefully, you slide the tip underneath it and begin to lift. The coin balances precariously on the end of your pole. You raise it slowly, agonizingly from the depths. It breaks the surface of the water, shedding a cascade of filthy droplets. But its shine is undiminished. You guide it towards your free hand. And then, finally you have it. It lies in your palm, heavy, solid, and wonderfully real. You rub the grime from its surface with your thumb. You can make out the profile of the young Queen Victoria, her features worn smooth by its time in circulation and its journey through the underworld. It is a shilling. 12 pence. It is a shilling. 12 pence. It is a fortune. It is the price of a warm meal, a night in a real bed, a moment of respite from this grinding, relentless poverty. The emotional experience of the find is something that historical accounts can rarely capture. They can list the economic value of scavenged goods, but they cannot convey the visceral, psychological impact of a moment like this. For you, it's a validation of all the risks, all the misery. It is a sign that the universe has not entirely forgotten you. It's a pure, powerful hit of hope, more potent than any drug. But even in this moment of triumph, you are a creature of this world. Your first instinct is not to celebrate, but to conceal. You quickly look up and down the dark tunnel, listening. Is anyone there? Did anyone see? The fear of the other to share, of a rival, returns instantly. You swiftly tug the coin into the small, secure leather pouch at your belt, separate from the worthless scrap in your sack. The treasure is hidden. But they are different now. They are edged with the warm, secret glow of the silver shilling resting safely against your body. You have won. For today, at least you have won. The weight of the silver shilling in your pouch changes everything. It's a secret warmth against your skin, a talisman against the encroaching despair. The work is no longer just a desperate scramble for survival. It is now a mission to protect your prize. The rest of the day is a blur of cautious movement. You find a few more trifles, a length of copper wire, a small brass buckle, but your heart isn't in it. Your mind is already on the next, and in some ways, most dangerous part of your journey, returning to the world above and turning your finds into actual money. Your target is a marine store dealer. It's a wonderfully misleading name, conjuring images of seafaring supplies, of ropes and anchors and brass sextants. The reality is far grubbier. A marine store is the final destination for the city's scavenged refuse. It is a general-purpose junk shop, a place that buys anything and everything that can be recycled or resold, rags, bowls. They are the linchpin of the entire informal economy of the London streets. The gateway between the underworld of the scavengers and the legitimate world of industry. You know of one in a labyrinth of back alleys near the river, a place with a reputation for being, well, no marine store dealer has a reputation for being generous. But this one is known to be at least moderately honest. As the weak afternoon light begins to fade from the world above, a change you can sense only as a subtle deepening of the darkness at the sewer's entrance. You begin your slow journey back. Emerging from the sewer is a strange and disorienting rebirth. You climb out of the iron mouth and the world assaults your senses. The light, even the weak, grey twilight of a London evening, is blindingly bright after hours of darkness. The noise of the street, which you had blocked out, returns with a deafening roar. And the air smells impossibly, wonderfully clean. You can pick out the individual scents of rain on dusty pavement, of baking bread from a nearby shop, of damp wool from the coats of the people rushing past. It is a sensory feast, and it makes you feel dizzy and unreal. You are a ghost on these streets. People give you a wide berth. They can smell the sewer on you, a faint but unmistakable aura of decay. They see your strange, filthy clothes, your grimy face, your shapeless form. Mothers pull their children closer. Gentlemen turn their heads away in disgust. You are an unwelcome reminder of the world they are trying so hard to ignore. You keep your head down, your gaze fixed on the cobblestones, and navigate the alleys towards your destination. The marine store is a dark, cavernous space, its entrance cluttered with bales of rags and piles of rusting metal. The air inside is thick with its own unique perfume, a dry, dusty smell of old paper, mildew, and the faint, sweet scent of decay. The dealer is a hunched figure behind a high, worn-out wooden counter, his face barely visible in the gloom. He watches you approach, his eyes small and sharp, missing nothing. This is the final battle of the day, a contest of wits and wills. He is the expert, the one who knows the precise, up-to-the-minute value of scrap lead versus scrap copper. You are the desperate seller, and he knows it. The power imbalance is immense. You unshoulder your sack and empty its contents onto the counter with a metallic clatter. This is a crucial moment. You do not, under any circumstances, show him the shilling. That is your secret, your victory. The scrap is for him. He pokes at the pile with a grimy finger, his expression one of profound disappointment, as if you had brought him the most pathetic collection of rubbish he has ever seen. It's a performance, and you both know it. He separates the pile into smaller heaps. Iron here, copper there, lead, brass, bone. He weighs each pile on a large, clanking set of scales, his eyes squinting at the number. He names a price. It's indulgently low. You know, from the whispers and gossip of the streets, roughly what you should be getting. This is the moment where many in your position, intimidated and exhausted, would simply accept. But the shilling has given you a sliver of confidence. You counter with a higher price. He scoffs. You hold your ground. The debate over the value of this pile of filth is a subject that fascinates economic historians. There were no official commodity prices for scrap metal in this informal economy. Prices were set by a complex, unwritten dance of tradition, desperation, and personal reputation. Was it pure exploitation or a functioning, if brutal, form of a free market? Standing here arguing over a half-penny, it feels like both. After a few minutes of theatrical haggling, you settle on a price. It's less than you wanted, but more than he initially offered. He counts out a few copper coins into your hand. is touched dry and reptilian. The transaction is complete. You have successfully turned a day of unimaginable filth and danger into a handful of warm, heavy pennies. You quickly leave the shop, melting back into the twilight of the alleys, the precious coins clutched tightly in your fist. You now have 2 kinds of money, the hard-won pennies from the dealer, and the secret, shining shilling. And now, for the first time today, you can allow yourself to think about what you will buy with them. Clutching your small handful of coins, you feel a profound sense of distance from the world you just left. That subterranean river of filth seems like a bad dream. And in a way, you are a participant in a grand historical transition. The chaotic, ancient sewer system you just survived is a dying beast. Above your head, unseen and unimagined by most of the city's inhabitants, a revolution is taking place. You are living in the shadow of the Great Stink. In the summer of 1858, a heat wave combined with the raw sewage being dumped directly into the Thames created a stench so overpowering, so monumentally foul, that it brought the city to its knees. The Houses of Parliament, located right on the riverbank, became unbearable. Politicians, who had for decades ignored the pleas of doctors and social reformers, were suddenly forced to act, their hands literally held to their noses. The curtains of the Parliament building were soaked in chloride of lime in a futile attempt to mask the smell. It was a moment of profound crisis, but also of profound opportunity. A man named Joseph Bozaletich, a brilliant and determined civil engineer, was given the monumental task of solving the problem once and for all. His vision was not just to repair the existing sewers, but to create an entirely new, modern system. It was one of the most ambitious and expensive civil engineering projects the world had ever seen. The work has been going on for years now, a vast, sprawling construction site that stretches across the entire city. You've seen the evidence of it on the surface, great trenches cutting through the streets, the constant noise of steam engines and hammering, and the armies of thousands of workers, the navvies who are digging, blasting, and bricklaying their way across London. Bozalettich's system was a work of genius. He designed and built huge interceptor sewers, massive brick tunnels running from west to east, designed to catch the sewage from the old, north-south running sewers before it could reach the Thames. These interceptors would then carry the waste far downstream to be released into the river on the outgoing tide, away from the city's drinking water intakes. What you as a Tosher would notice is the change in the old tunnels. As the new system comes online, section by section, the flow in the ancient sewers you frequent begins to change. In some places, the current slows to a near standstill as its main flow is diverted into one of Bozalettich's new interceptors. These stagnant sections become even more dangerous, perfect breeding grounds for bad air. In other places, the flow might increase unpredictably as new connections are made. If dangerous landscape you have learned to read is being rewritten. And the new tunnels, they are a different world entirely. On the rare occasion that you might find an entrance to one of the newly constructed sections, it would be like stepping from a medieval alley into a cathedral. They are enormous, some of them large enough to drive a train through. The brickwork is perfect, the engineering precise. Many of them were designed to be egg-shaped, a clever innovation that meant that even a small flow of water would be fast-moving enough to be self-cleaning, preventing the build-up of the very silt you depend on for your livelihood. This is a point of quiet irony often missed in the grand histories of public works. Bozalettich's brilliant system, which would save countless lives by eradicating cholera and other waterborne diseases, was a direct threat to your existence. A clean, efficient sewer has no place for a Tosher. The scoured bottoms of the new tunnels offer no place for a lost coin to settle. The faster currents sweep everything away too quickly. Did Bozaletich and his engineers ever consider the ecosystem of scavengers that their new system would displace? It's a question historians sometimes ask. The answer is almost certainly no. Their focus was on sanitation, on public health, on the grand, macro-level problem. The handful of desperate individuals who made a living to invisible footnote. They were, in a sense, a human problem that this great feat of engineering would simply flush away. You don't think of it in such grand, historical terms. You just know that the world beneath your feet is changing. The old, familiar hunting grounds are becoming less predictable. less profitable. You are a creature of the old, chaotic, medieval London, a city of cracks and crevices and forgotten spaces. And a new, clean, modern London is being built on top of it, a city that is slowly, inexorably squeezing you out of existence. The coins in your hand are a victory, but you sense, in a way you can't quite articulate, that it is a victory in a war you are destined to lose. The day is dying. The weak, grey light has thickened into a deep, bruised purple, and the gas lamps on the main streets are beginning to hiss into life, casting long, dancing shadows. For most of London, this is the end of the working day, a time to head home to a warm fire and a simple meal. For you, it is the beginning of the slow, weary climb back to a semblance of humanity. Your first destination is the river, not the busy commercial docks, but a quiet, forgotten set of stone steps leading down to the water's edge. The tide is coming in and the relatively clean, cold water of the Thames is a blessing. You wade into the shallows, the icy shock a welcome jolt after the cloying filth of the sewer. Here in the gathering twilight, you perform a ritual of cleansing. You wash the thickest of the grime from your heavy boots and your woolen trousers, the dark clouds of filth blooming in the water around you and being carried away by the current. You scrub your hands with a piece of coarse soap you keep wrapped in a rag, scrubbing until your skin is raw, trying to remove the last, lingering traces of the underworld. You splash the cold water on your face, the clean shock of it making you gasp. It's a futile gesture in a way. You can never get truly clean. The smell is too deep in the fibers of your clothes, the grime too ingrained in the calluses on your hands. But the ritual is necessary. It is a drawing of a line, a symbolic separation between the creature you must be to survive down there and the woman you must try to be up here. Historians and sociologists who study marginalized communities often talk about the importance of such rituals. They are a way of maintaining a sense of self, of dignity, in a world that is constantly trying to strip it away. It's a small act of defiance, a declaration that you are more than just the filth you wade through. Clean, or at least cleaner. You begin the long walk. Your body is a symphony of aches. Your lower back screams from the constant stooping. Your knees and ankles throb with a dull, persistent pain from walking on uneven surfaces in ill-fitting boots. Your shoulders ache from the weight of your sack, even now that it is empty. Every muscle is protesting. You make your way towards the cheapest lodging you know, a doss house in one of the city's sprawling, impoverished rookeries. The streets here are narrow, unlit, and treacherous. The buildings lean against each other for support, their windows like vacant, staring eyes. The air is thick with the smell of cheap gin, unwashed bodies, and boiling cabbage. You pay the lodging housekeeper your coppers. Not the shilling. Never the shilling. That is your secret, your hope for tomorrow. The coppers buy you a spot. Not a room, not even a bed. Just a space on the floor of a large communal room, crammed with dozens of other souls, the city is forgotten and dispossessed. The room is a cacophony of snores, coughs, and muttered nightmares. The air is thick and stale, but it is a roof. It is, for a few hours, a sanctuary from the cold and the rain. You find your spot, huddle against a wall, and pull your still damp jacket tighter around you. You are too tired to sleep, your mind still buzzing from the day's ordeal. You replay the moments of terror, the sudden roar of the flash, the ghostly blue halo of the gas and the moment of triumph, the beautiful, shining glint of the silver coin in the dark water. You are living a life of extreme contrasts, a oscillation between the absolute, silent solitude of the sewer and the chaotic, oppressive lack of privacy of the doss house. Which is worse? It's a question you don't have the energy to answer. They are just two sides of the same tarnished coin of your existence. The slow climb to light is not just a physical act of leaving the sewer. It is this entire, exhausting process. It's the cleaning, the walking, the bartering for a place to rest. It is the slow, painful re-entry into a world that does not want you, a world that you must navigate with the meager resources you have dragged up from the darkness. As you finally begin to drift into a shallow, uneasy sleep, the rhythmic lapping of the sewer water echoes in your ears. A lullaby from a dark and terrible mother. The day is over. You have survived, and in a few short hours, you will have to do it all over again. Morning arrives not with sunlight, but with a cough. Someone in the crowded room begins to hack, a deep, rattling sound that acts as a grim alarm clock for everyone else. The house stirs, a slow, shuffling awakening of aching bodies and weary souls. You rise, every muscle protesting, and slip out into the pre-dawn chill of the alleys before the real chaos of the day begins. With the secret shillings still safely tucked away, you allow yourself a luxury. You spend one of the pennies you earn from the marine store dealer on a mug of hot, sweet tea and a thick slice of bread from a street vendor. The warmth of the mug in your cold hands feels like the greatest indulgence in the world. The bread is coarse and stale, but it fills the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. You eat it slowly, deliberately, making it last. As you stand there, leaning against a damp brick wall, the city slowly comes to life around you. The first carts begin to rumble over the cobblestones. Shopkeepers unbolt their doors. The river of humanity begins to flow once more. And you feel a profound, almost dizzying sense of alienation. You are a ghost at this feast. You watch the people as they hurry past. Their faces set with the concerns of their own lives, aching out, worried about being late for work. A mother trying to get her children to school. A merchant planning his day's trade. They're all part of a world that you can see, that you can walk through, but that you cannot touch. They live on a different plane of existence. They live on a different plane of existence. Their lives are governed by clocks, by appointments, by social obligations. Your life is governed by the tides, by the level of oil in your lantern, by the glint of a lost nail in the muck. Yesterday, you were a part of a hidden, silent world. Today you are back in the world of noise and light, but you are not of a spectre invisible in your grime. The clothes you wear, the faint, indelible scent of the sewer that clings to you, they mark you as other. You are a creature from below temporarily visiting the surface, and you make the surface dwellers uncomfortable. This feeling of social invisibility is a recurring theme in the writings of Victorian social observers like Mayhew. They were fascinated by the vast, unseen populations that coexisted with the respectable world of Victorian London, the street sellers, the scavengers, the beggars. These people were, in a very real sense, living in a separate, parallel society with its own rules, its own economy, and its own social code. The question of whether this was a conscious choice, a rejection of mainstream society, or a forced exile is something historians still grapple with. For you, it feels less like a choice and more like a chasm, a gap too wide to cross. You watch a well-dressed woman step out of a carriage, her silk dress rustling, her face clean and pale. For a moment, your eyes meet. You see a flicker of something in her expression: pity, disgust, fear. Then she looks away, dismissing you from her reality as easily as brushing a piece of lint from her sleeve. In that brief, dismissive glance, the entire rigid, unyielding class structure of your society is laid bare. She lives in a world of light, of clean water, of warmth. You are a denizen of the darkness, a reminder of the filth that her clean world is built upon. You finish your bread and tea. The brief moment of warmth and comfort is over. The reality of your day is waiting. Do you risk another journey into the sewer today? Or do you try to use the shilling to find a different, safer way to earn a few pennies? The shilling is a powerful asset, but it is also finite. It could buy you a few days of respite, a chance to find some clean clothes, perhaps even secure a slightly better lodging. But a few days is not a lifetime. You will be back where you started. The alienation you feel is not just social, it is physical. Your body, accustomed now to the cold, the damp, the darkness, feels strangely clumsy and oversized in the bustling, sunlit world. The noise is too loud, the light too bright. There is a strange, perverse sense of longing for the simplicity of the world below. Down there, the rules are clear, the dangers are social, economic, a web of invisible rules and judgments that you can never hope to navigate successfully. You pull your collar up, hunch your shoulders, and melt back into the anonymous flow of the crowd. You are a ghost, a secret, a walking embodiment of the city's hidden shame. And for now, your only goal is to remain as invisible as possible. The shilling buys you a day, a single precious day of respite. You decide not to return to the sewer. Not today. The memory of the near disasters, the bad air, the sudden flushes to fresh. Your body and your nerves need to recover. You spend a part of your silver treasure on a night in a slightly better lodging. Here, you get a cot in a room with only 4 other women, a thin blanket, and the unimaginable luxury of a basin of clean water. Here, in the relative privacy of this small bleak room, you finally have the chance to take a true accounting of the physical toll of your profession. You begin by peeling off the layers of damp, filthy clothing. Each garment is stiff with grime and smells of the sewer's unique foul perfume. You do your best to wash them in the basin, the water turning a sickening shade of black almost instantly. It's a hopeless task, but you scrub and drink, driven by a desperate need to feel clean again. With your clothes laid out to dry, you turn your attention to your own body. Your skin, where it has been submerged for hours, is pale and puckered. But it's the injuries you notice most. Your hands are a mess of small cuts and deep, ingrained grime that no amount of scrubbing can remove. Your fingernails are broken and trimmed with black. You examine the cut on the back of your hand from the rusted iron. It's angry and red, the skin around it puffy and warm to the touch. A knot of cold fear tightens in your stomach. You clean it as best you can with a precious scrap of clean rag and pray that it doesn't worsen. Your legs and feet are in even worse condition. Your woolen trousers have chafed your skin raw in several places. And when you finally peel off your wet boots and the sodden straw within, the sight of your feet is shocking. They are white, swollen, and wrinkled, the skin looking like it might slough off at the slightest touch. This is the beginning of trench foot, a condition caused by prolonged exposure to cold, damp, and unsanitary conditions. If left unchecked, it can lead to gangrene and the loss of toes, or even the entire foot. You lie down on the cot, and every muscle in your body sings with a chorus of deep, throbbing aches. The constant stooping and straining has left your back in agony. Your knees, forced to bend and brace against the current for hours, feel weak and unstable. This is the body's ledger, the physical price for every penny you've earned. It's a debt that accumulates day by day, a slow, inexorable breakdown of your physical self. What was the long-term health of a Toshers like? It's a question that haunts historians of labor and health. There are no medical records, no long-term studies. We can only infer from the conditions they worked in. Chronic respiratory illnesses from the damp air and toxic fumes were likely universal. Arthritis and debilitating joint pain would have been a certainty. Skin infections, digestive ailments from the constant exposure to bacteria, and poor eyesight from the hours spent in near darkness would have been commonplace. It was a profession that consumed the body, aging a person with brutal speed. There's a significant debate in medical history about the Victorian concept of acclimatization. Some doctors and social theorists of the time believed that the poor, through constant exposure, could develop a natural resistance to the filth and disease that surrounded them. The modern understanding of immunology and public health has thoroughly debunked this idea. There is no AC climatizing to cholera. There is no building a resistance to tetanus. The high mortality rates in the slums are a grim testament to this fact. The poor did not adapt, they just died younger. You run a hand over your face. Your skin feels rough, your hair is matted. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in the grimy windowpane. The face that stares back at you is older than you feel, its expression a permanent mask of weary vigilance. The city is wearing you away, grinding you down both inside and out. For today you have rest. You have a thin blanket and a coat. But you know this is just a temporary pause. The shilling will not last forever. Soon you will have to put the stiff, still damp clothes back on. You will have to force your swollen, painful feet back into the cold leather of your boots. The sewer will be waiting. And your body will have to pay the price all over again. The shilling, which felt like a fortune, melts away with astonishing speed. A few nights of slightly better lodging, a few meager meals of bread and cheese, a new pair of thick woolen socks to ward off the dreaded trench foot. Each small purchase is a desperate investment in your own survival, but it drains your resources. Soon, you are back where you started, with only a few coppers in your pocket and the familiar, gnawing ache of hunger in your belly. But as you contemplate your return to the underworld, you begin to notice a subtle but profound change in the city around you. The relentless march of progress, which before was just a background noise of construction, is becoming more tangible, its effects rippling down even to your level of society. You notice it at the marine store dealers. You bring him a small sack of fines from a short, nervous trip into a familiar section of the sewer, and he offers you even less than usual. He grumbles about the new regulations. The city, in its great doctor for sanitation and order, is beginning to formalize its waste collection. The old, chaotic system of scavenging is being slowly replaced by municipal services. There are official rag and bone men now, licensed by the parish, who get first pick. The supply of easily accessible scrap is dwindling. You notice it in the very structure of the underworld. You approach the entrance to a section of the old sewer that has always been a reliable if dangerous hunting ground, only to find it sealed. A new, heavy iron grate has been bolted over the entrance, its bowels too narrow for a person to sit through. On it is a stark, stenciled sign. BYODROFTHE METROPOATAMBOARDOFWRKS NOENTRY. Basiletage's new order is asserting itself, closing off the wild, forgotten spaces of the old city. The labyrinth is being tamed, its entrances locked and guarded. You hear it in the talk on the streets. The grey construction projects are not just about sewers. New roads are being cut through the old, crowded rookeries. Slums are being cleared to make way for railway lines and grand public buildings. The city is being physically rewritten, and the people who lived in those forgotten corners are being displaced, scattered. The world that created the role of the Toshers, a world of extreme poverty living cheek by jowl with extreme wealth, a world of cracks and gaps in the urban fabric, is beginning to disappear. The profession itself is dying. The older, experienced Toshers, the ones who knew the secret paths and the most lucrative spots, are a dwindling breed. Some have succumbed to the diseases and dangers of the work. Others, perhaps, have been driven out by the changing landscape. There are fewer people taking up the trade. Why risk the horrors of the sewer when there is paid, if back-breaking, labor to be had on the great construction sites? To be a novice, digging the new tunnels is a brutal, dangerous job, but it offers a regular if small wage. It is a step up from the freelance desperation of scavenging. The end of this era is a complex topic for historians. There was no single law that banned Toshing. There was no official edict that put an end to the profession. It simply faded away, a slow, quiet extinction. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. The new sewer system, the slum clearances, the formalization of waste collection, the rise of new alternative forms of labor. The ecological niche that the Toshers had occupied was simply engineered out of existence. You feel this change not as a historical process, but as a personal, pressing crisis. The doors to your dangerous kingdom are closing, one by one. The river of filth, which once offered a steady, if disgusting, stream of potential income, is running dry. You are becoming obsolete. The unique, hard-won skills you have acquired, the ability to read the currents, to distinguish the sound of copper from the sound of stone with the tip of a pole, to navigate by the feel of the air, are becoming useless. You stand before one of the newly sealed sewer entrances, your hand resting on the cold, unforgiving iron. This grate is a symbol of your future. It represents a new London, a city of order, of sanitation, of progress. It is a city that is cleaner, healthier, and safer. It is a city that will be a marvel of the modern world. It's a city that has no place for you. The faint, familiar smell of the sewer wafts up through the bars, a ghostly exhalation from a dying world. It is the smell of your survival and the smell of your doom. The end is not coming with a bang, not with a cave-in or a sudden flood. It is coming with the quiet, inexorable turning of a key in a lock. You are a relic, a ghost haunting a city that is rapidly forgetting its own past. The world that forged you is vanishing, brick by brick, drain by drain. The great, roaring engine of Victorian progress is deaf to the small, scraping sounds of your existence. You stand one last time at an iron mouth, a familiar opening to a tributary sewer down by the old wharf. The tide is low. The familiar, foul breath of the underworld exhales, a scent that once meant opportunity. but now smells only of decay and bitter memory. You look at your lantern, at your long worn pole, the tools of a trade that no longer exists. You have a choice: to step back into that darkness one more time, to hunt for the last, forgotten scraps, or to turn away. You turn away. You leave the pole leaning against the stone wall, a silent monument to a forgotten life. You walk away from the river, away from the darkness, and you do not look back. Your story, like the stories of the thousands of other women who shared your fate, dissolves into the vast, unwritten history of the city. What happened to you? Did you find another way to survive in this new, cleaner, more organized world? Perhaps you found work as a charwoman, scrubbing the floors of the very fine houses whose waste you once sifted through. Perhaps you ended up selling matches or flowers on a street corner, a small grey figure on the periphery of the city's grand new narrative. Or perhaps, like so many others, you finally succumbed to the cough that never left your lungs, your story ending in the anonymous ward of a workhouse infirmary. The historical record is silent. The Toshers left no diaries, no letters. Their existence is known to us only through the writings of a few curious upper-class observers, men who viewed them as a strange, almost alien species. They were a footnote in the grand story of London's rise, a piece of human grit in the great machine of progress. And yet, your world is still there. Beneath the paved streets, the rumbling underground trains, the gleaming steel and glass of the modern city, the old labyrinth still sleeps. The brick tunnels you walked, the places where you felt the terror of the flush and the triumph of the find, are still there. They're a silent, dark museum of a forgotten way of life. Sometimes, a construction crew, digging a new foundation, will break through into one of these old, unpaid sewers, and for a brief moment, a breath of that old, foul air will rise into the modern world, a ghostly reminder of the city's hidden past. The debate about the Victorian era will likely never end. Was it an age of glorious progress and innovation, or an age of brutal exploitation and staggering inequality? The answer, of course, is that it was both. The gleaming new city of Joseph Bozeletich, a city saved from the scourge of cholera, was built upon a foundation of countless, forgotten lives like yours. The price of that public health revolution was paid by the navvies who died in the construction, and by the scavengers whose world was rendered obsolete. Your individual story is lost, a single drop of water in a vast, dark river. But your collective story, the story of the women who walked in darkness, who sifted through filth for a chance to see another sunrise, that story is embedded in the very foundations of the city. It is a story of desperation, yes, but it is also a story of incredible resilience, of ingenuity, of a will to survive against impossible odds. It is a quiet, dirty, and profoundly human story. And though the world has forgotten your name, the echoes of your footsteps can still be heard if you listen closely in the deep, silent places beneath the city's roar. The story now begins to soften and fade, like the edges of a dream you are just beginning to leave behind. The hard, cold bricks of the sewer seem to lose their substance, dissolving into the gentle darkness that surrounds you. The chill of the water recedes, replaced by a pleasant, drifting warmth that spreads slowly through your limbs. The sounds, too, begin to change. The distant rumble of the city, the sharp clang of iron, the chittering of the unseen, they all melt away, leaving only a profound and peaceful quiet. Even the sound of my voice might begin to feel more distant now, a gentle murmur that is simply part of the stillness. You can let go of the story now. Let go of the struggle, the fear, the small, hard-won triumphs. They were just shadows, painted on the quiet canvas of your resting mind. And now the canvas is becoming clear again, a deep and empty space, ready for your own dreams to appear. Feel yourself drifting on a slow, easy current, not of foul water, but of pure, effortless peace, a current that is carrying you gently, gently towards the soft and welcome shores of a deep and wonderful sea. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly.